Field service process is always quite entertaining. Most of the time, field service practice can vary to industry, but what you will find is, more often than not, field service actually runs in almost like a panic mode, particularly if it's break fix. Preventative maintenance and install is a bit different, but break fix maintenance tends to be originated by a call. So if I'm in a trade, it tends to be originated by a real estate agent ringing me going, the plumbing's broken, get someone there now. If I'm in an IT business, it tends to be, I've got machines down or my servers down, get someone here now. So it's a very reactive kind of organisation. So what that usually means is businesses have surplus capacity to cope with peaks. So we sort of seen all sorts of ways people schedule. So bigger teams will tend to have, if they've got good service management, they'll tend to schedule, for argument's sake, 75% of their resources as almost, if you like, a maximum day. So they'll try and utilise them with drive time for maybe 70% of the day. And then they'll keep 25% of their resources, I'll call it only 15 or 20% loaded. So they'll just, they're the people that backfill. Oh, geez, I've had this call. Whack, you go and do that one. So basically, I get an inbound call, please fix X. Someone actually decides who is going to go and fix X, and they're trying to communicate that to the customer now. Obviously, urgency comes into it. Some businesses are same day, some businesses are next day, so on and so forth. Most paper-based organisations will voice dispatch or text message dispatch. And by voice dispatch, I physically mean they ring them up or they break a hello over. Please write this down. And so at every point in the chain so far, we've got transcription. We're rewriting the name, we're rewriting the address, we're rewriting the description of the information and what the problem is. I'd say, in our experience, 75% of businesses then leave it to the technician to actually contact the customer and say when they're going to get there. So the call centre, if you like, or the person booking the call will say, Bob's going to be there at 2, and invariably Bob is never there at 2. But the business has no transparency of really where Bob's at, how Bob's going. For all he knows, Bob could have been shot. But that's the vibe of the thing. And so consequently, effectively, I suppose the touch management of the customer is pretty poor because the tech's doing his job. And if you really think about technical people, they're pretty linear. They don't think laterally, and they're absolutely going to follow the bouncing ball. And if the bouncing ball doesn't actually have a step which says ring customer, they don't ring the customer. So we'll assume that Bob actually arrived on site, and his job is basically there to resolve the outcome. And then he's going to write down whatever he needs to write down. And entertainingly, I'd say nearly every customer we've ever worked with in the last 6 years in terms of mobility, where they've got a service business, they know that they don't actually bill for everything, but they have no idea how to quantify that. They know that people forget to write parts on. They know that people just don't pick up, the job card never even gets filled in. They know that they arrive on site, particularly where people are on contract. I'll give you a classic story actually. Got a customer in Queensland, they do horticultural services. So they basically go around to hotels and they clip things, and they maybe put some chlorine in the pool, and they mow the lawn, and they edge the path, and so on and so forth. Great job. They've got 37 crews out there doing that, and they basically sell a subscription. So let's say I'm the sales guy, I'm like, here's a heck on, mate, you want this done, and they tick a few boxes and say that's the service manifest, and then they'll slot it into weekly, fortnightly, monthly, so on and so activities. So it's very much like core preventative maintenance work, except for obviously no one's going to die if the hedges aren't clipped, but that's what they do. However, in saying that, they did a little study where they put a guy who was like a consultant with the different crews just to see what work they really did. They found in something like 55% of cases, when the guys got there, they did work that was not on the schedule of works, and consequently the job blew out. And almost never they actually recorded that, and therefore it never got billed. So the customer was effectively getting a free ride, and everyone thought it was okay because the techs were never required to think through, should this be invoiced? Because they didn't invoice, they just showed up and did the job. And the customer never really, so the people that signed the contract versus the people that were requesting the work were so far removed that basically the business, they did an assessment, they reckoned that one crew was costing them 60 grand a year in free services. And we've seen a similar thing with another company that's got 70 crews, but the problem's even more exacerbated because they do council work. So, you know, the council boys are leaning on the shovel, and their guys are actually doing extra work.
But did they have any performance indicators at all? I mean,
well, their performance indicators were really just a customer sign that they did whatever was intended. So they had a very simple job card, which is pretty well standard. I mean, most organisations will have that. They'll have a record of works. But the reality of it is, if you're not actually dispatching a manifest of what needs to be done, other than because the guys just get into a routine.
yeah.
I know. I clip the lawn here every 2 weeks. So they do. So they clip it, and it's very routine. I mean, it's got an IT customer that they do patch management on networks, and you know, they go out and do support and all that sort of stuff. And their guys, they did some trending on their biggest support issues, were all with printers. Just stupid. Bob couldn't print. So they were actually out there to do a routine service. You know, you're my platinum customer, I'm going to do my routine service. And the guys that ended up blowing out 2 or 3 hours on site because once they got there, this wasn't working, and you know, Dawn hadn't been patching her machine, or for whatever reason she'd unplugged her blue cable, so there'd been no updates and she couldn't get email. You know, really lame little reasons why things were causing problems.
Things they don't bring up until they see you in the buildings.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, going through that, I suppose typically then what's happened is the actual service job is then either dropped back on a piece of paper, phoned through, and somewhere along the way somehow a bill gets generated. Obviously that's different in B2C, so most consumer businesses are a little bit tighter because they actually want to collect cash. So the bigger business problems tend to be in businesses that service business as opposed to businesses that service consumers. And really the difference is there, as consumers we expect to pay in advance, and as businesses we expect to be put it on layaway. So it's all good. I suppose where over time we've come up with various things which people are either concerned about or actually present us with software challenges in terms of implementing mobility. The first one tends to be actual information leakage. There's a real fear that if I put something on a mobile device, if you like, or it's in a database, that somehow it can be stolen. And I always try and say, can I have your parts list? It's a sales organisation. And they hand you the parts list. I've just stolen your business intelligence. And the photocopy is a really effective thieving tool. But that is nonetheless a real challenge. I guess the other side of information leakage is a bit different. If you think through, I create something as a piece of paper, and the number of times I actually reprocess it on paper, you actually think about it as a person, what you do. Every time you write less and less. Until you actually come to record in the accounting system, particularly people who run Mile, you'll see that the difference between the service book and the Mile book will just say service, $50, or whatever the number is. So you lose so much data through the retranscribing information through a process that in the end, the information leakage that really occurs is that you actually lost the ability to trend and understand your business better.